Because I'm trying to just like think about what that looks like of early church versus now, and these kind of comparisons we're looking at, but also looking at like the cultural and historical context of then.
Yeah.
Of like
Very different. Yeah.
Right. There's no one sitting outside of a temple who gets brought there every day for 20 years, and like that doesn't happen, right? And so
let me tell you the difference. Oh, sorry, can I cut you off?
Go.
Let me tell you the difference.
Yes.
All right. The Enlightenment, all of this happening, a few hundred years ago, which really birthed the Western world as we know it today.
Mm-hmm.
There was a huge philosophical shift. Our country was founded out of this shift. And we all have this deeply embedded in our mentality today. And the shift is we can accept things that we can understand. And the whole idea of scientific method, scientific process, the whole idea of let's investigate what's going on in the world to learn about it, this whole idea of we can only prove what we can prove and we can't believe things we can't prove. What we have done is we have, in effect, gotten rid of the need for God. We think that we've done that, but we haven't, which is why you had philosophers saying things like God is dead, and you had Karl Marx saying things like, no, we don't need to believe in a deity, and like all of this is explainable and all of that stuff. Now, Christianity was still very strong for a very long time after that, but in a lot of ways, it was sort of nominally strong, right? Like we're going to build our society based on this idea of like human empowerment, human intellect, like we can solve our own problems, right? That, like if I could sort of summarize the mentality of the last few hundred years, I would probably summarize it that way. We can solve our own problems. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why you don't have a guy sitting in front of the temple gate who can't walk, hoping for a miracle or really just begging for bread is because we think that we can solve that guy's problems. And so we don't put him by the side of the road anymore. And there's a lot of good that comes from that. Like we've developed modern medicine. We've actually developed solutions for a lot of these things. But the truth is we can't really solve his problem. And that's the crisis that we have today as a society. We've rejected the idea of absolute truth. We've rejected the idea of God as a higher power. We've fully embraced this idea that we can understand our problems and we can solve them. And it's given birth to a new religion called humanism. I would call it that. We can solve all of our own problems and we better. But there's no value system. Right. And so we're still borrowing the value system of Christianity because that's still the heritage. The value system of like people have inherent worth and value. People ought to be listened to and respected. We shouldn't abuse people, right? Like these are not humanistic values. These are Christian values that we still have sort of as the foundation underneath us. But if you watch where humanism is going, we're starting to reject all that too. Mm-hmm. Because like, well, we tolerate people except for the people we don't tolerate, and then we tar and feather them.
Sure.
It's like, well, now we're just going back to tribal thinking. But anyway, so the reason why the context is different is because we have now believed that we as human beings have the ability to solve our own problems.
Right.
But that doesn't change the fact that we can't. Mm-hmm. We actually can't.